Soren closed his eyes, pressing into the sigils. The world dissolved into light and song. He stood in a void, kestrel before him, translucent, fraying at the edges. "You have to let go," Kestrel said. "No. The sigils are killing you, and if you die, the sanctuary dies too. There's another way." Kestrel smiled, sad. "There's always another way, but this one's mine." The void shuddered. The devourer's song seeped through the cracks. Jin shook Soren awake. "They've breached the core." Echelon's hybrids swarmed the heart tree, their drills spewing black ichor into its roots. The Luminari's song twisted into a scream as the tree's light dimmed. Soren staggered upright. "Get to the ship. There's a pulse charge in the wreckage. We can overload it." "That'll take out half the forest." "It'll take them too." Jin hesitated, her coral arm trembling. Then she ran. The charge was where Soren had left it, buried under the haven's fractured core. Jin armed it, her arm resisting. "Fool, you'll doom us all." "Shut up," she snarled, slamming the activation sequence. The charge hummed to life. Soren faced the heart tree, the sigils on his chest tearing his skin. He reached for the Luminari's song, for Kestrel's voice, and pushed. Light erupted. The hybrids disintegrated. The dreadnought's beam refracted back, searing its hull. But the charge detonated too soon. The blast tore through the sanctuary, a wave of bioluminescent fire. Jin dove into a trench as the shockwave passed, her coral arms shielding her face. When the dust cleared, the heart tree was ash. So was Soren. In the silence, the devourers returned. Chapter 17. The sanctuary's air reeked of ionized ash and scorched coral. Jin clawed her way out of the trench, her coral arm shrieking as its thorns tore free from the rubble. The heart tree was gone, reduced to a skeletal spire jutting from a crater of molten glass. Soren's body lay at its base, his skin charred, the sigils on his chest dark. "Pathetic, you let him die." "Shut up," Jin hissed, though Rill's voice in her head only laughed. Echelon's dreadnought hung in the smoke-choked sky, its hull cracked but intact. Hybrids swarmed the ruins, their drills boring into the earth, mining the sanctuary's fading light. The Luminari were silent, those that remained. Their corpses littered the forest, coral bodies petrified mid-scream. Jin stumbled toward Soren, her arm dragging her like a chain. His hand was cold, the shard's remnant still fused to his palm. She pried it loose, the faintest flicker of warmth stinging her fingers. "Useless, he's gone." "I said shut up." She hurled the shard at the crater's edge. It landed with a dull thud, inert. The dreadnought's core pulsed, a beam of corrupted light lancing down to carve another scar into the sanctuary. Jin ducked as the ground erupted, molten debris raining around her. Somewhere in the chaos, the shard glowed. "Dad." The voice was Soren's. It was Kestrel. Jin froze. The shard pulsed again, brighter this time, its light reflecting in the shards of glass beneath her boots. She crawled toward it, her coral arm resisting, thorns digging into her ribs. "You don't deserve him," Rill sneered. "Yeah, well, you don't deserve me." She seized the shard. Light exploded. Visions tore through her, Kestrel dissolving into the Devourer's prison, Soren's sigils burning, the Luminari's final plea. And beneath it all a song. Not the Devourer's discord, not Echelon's corruption, but something older, purer. The shard melted into her coral arm, its light threading through the thorns. Rill screamed, his voice dissolving into static as the shard's warmth spread. "Jin." This time, the voice was hers alone. The dreadnought's beam targeted her. Jin stood, her arm blazing, and pushed. Light erupted, not a shield but a spear. It pierced the dreadnought's core, detonating in a cascade of bioluminescent fire. The shockwave flattened the hybrids, their corrupted coral disintegrating. Luren's face flashed on the comms, his coral-infested features contorted. "You'll burn with them." "Already am." Jin said, and fired again. The dreadnought shattered. Silence fell. The sanctuary survivors, Luminari and human alike, emerged from the ruins. Jin collapsed beside Soren, her arm numb, the shard's light dimming. "You did it." She turned. Kestrel stood beside her, translucent but whole, his form woven from the shard's remnants. "Not bad, kid," she rasped. He knelt, his hand hovering over Soren's chest. "He's still here, in the song." "Then bring him back." "I can't, but you can." The shard flared. Jin's coral arm moved on its own, pressing the shard to Soren's scars. Light bled into his veins. Soren gasped, his eyes snapping open, bioluminescent gold. "Welcome back," Jin said. He coughed, ash flecking his lips. "What did you do?" "What you'd have done, got reckless." The surviving Luminari gathered, their song rising, a fragile harmony. Kestrel's form flickered, his voice merging with theirs. "The bridge is mended, but the song needs guardians." Soren gripped Jin's arm, the coral now smooth, its thorns replaced by flowing veins of light. "You're staying." It wasn't a question. She nodded. Someone got to keep the lights on. The devourers came at dusk. Jin stood at the sanctuary's edge, her arm fused with the shard, Soren at her side. The Luminari's song swelled, Kestrel's voice leading the chorus. The void trembled. The devourers emerged and recoiled. For the first time, their song met one they could not consume. Jin raised her arm. "Let's dance." Chapter 18. The sanctuary trembled as the devourers descended, their formless shadows swallowing the light of the bioluminescent forests. Jin stood at the edge of the crater, where the heart tree once pulsed, her coral arm fused with the shard now glowing like a captured star. Beside her, Soren's breaths came ragged, his eyes flecked with gold, Luminari energy threading his veins. Above, the sky fractured, the void peeling back to reveal the devourers in their full, terrible majesty. Not creatures, but absences, hungry fractures in the fabric of existence. "This ends here," Jin said, her voice steady despite the thorns of her coral arm biting into her shoulder. Soren nodded, his gaze fixed on the swirling darkness. "We need to draw them into the song, all of them." Kestrel's voice whispered through the shard in Jin's arm, faint but resolute. "They fear harmony. Show them what they've forgotten." The Luminari emerged from the scorched forest, their coral bodies cracked but unbowed. Their song began as a murmur, a fragile hum that coiled through the air. Jin raised her arm, the shard's light amplifying their melody, weaving it into a shield of sound and light. The devourers recoiled, their edges fraying, but only for a moment. Then they struck. The battle was silence and scream. The devourers' touch unraveled the sanctuary's song, their anti-melody dissolving the Luminari's harmonies into discord. Jin fired shard light into the void, each blast tearing through the shadows, but never deep enough. Soren fought beside her, his borrowed Luminari energy flaring as he mended fractures in the shield, his hands trembling with effort. "They're too strong," he shouted over the cacophony. "No, they're afraid," Jin growled. The shard pulsed, Kestrel's presence surging through her. "Show them, Jin, show them the first song." She closed her eyes, letting the shard's memories flood her. The Luminari's dawn, their first symphony, the devourers born not from malice, but from a song split by greed. "They're not enemies," she realized aloud. "They're wounds." Soren stared. "What?" The first Luminari, they tried to share their song with others, but someone twisted it, broke it. The devourers are what's left. The revelation hung between them as the shield cracked. Kestrel's voice rang clear now, urgent. "Mend the fracture, sing the unbroken song." Jin seized Soren's hand, her coral arm fusing with his sigils. "Together, now." They raised their joined hands, the shard's light blazing. The Luminari's melody shifted, no longer a defense but an invitation, a memory of the song as it was meant to be. The devourers hesitated, their void flesh rippling. "You don't have to be this," Jin whispered, not with her voice but with the shard. "Remember." For a heartbeat, the void stilled. Then the devourers shattered. Light erupted, not as a weapon but as a balm. The fractures in the sky sealed, the devourers, shadows dissolving into stardust that rained gently over the sanctuary. The Luminari's song swelled, their coral bodies glowing as the forests bloomed anew, rivers of light flowing where ash had choked the earth. Jin collapsed, her coral arm crumbling to dust. Soren caught her, his golden eyes dimming to hazel as the Luminari energy left him. "Did we?" she rasped. "Yeah," he said, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "We did." Kestrel stood before them, solid at last, his form woven from shard light and stardust. "The song is whole again, but it needs guardians." Jin laughed weakly. "You volunteering?" He smiled. "I already am." The sanctuary thrived in the years that followed. The Luminari taught their song to those who would listen, human settlers, rogue echelon scientists, wanderers seeking redemption. The devourers, remnants lingered as whispers in the void, harmless echoes of a healed wound. Soren stayed, his hands now tending gardens of bioluminescent blooms. Jin wandered, her coral arm regrown but gentler, a bridge between worlds. She returned often, her laughter sharp but kind, her stories weaving new verses into the Luminari's hymn. And in the heart of the forest, a sapling grew where the heart tree once stood. Sometimes, in the dappled light, a boy's laughter could be heard, a melody woven into the wind, a guardian's promise. Epilogue. The galaxy remembered. On terraformed worlds and derelict stations, the tale was told, of a bridge mended, a song reclaimed, and the fools who dared to believe in symbiosis. Echelon's remnants faded, their corrupted tech abandoned for older, truer harmonies. New alliances formed, fragile but hopeful, their treaties signed not in blood but in shared melodies. And in the quiet between stars, where the void once threatened, a single chord hummed, a lullaby for the lost, a hymn for the found, eternal.